Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Oswego County Industrial Development Agency meeting of July 25th, 2023. And before we begin, I'm going to have Kevin LaMontagne introduce the staff, and we don't have any guests today, right, Kevin?
Correct, Gary. No guests today. As far as staff, we have our Chief Executive Officer, Austin Wheelock. I'm Kevin LaMontagne. I serve as the CFO of the agency, and our General Counsel, Kevin Kirkole, is here.
Okay, and Len, would you do a kind of a roll call for board members to ensure we have a quorum?
All right, Gary Toth.
Present.
Barry.
Present.
Tim Stahl.
Present.
Mark Recco.
Present.
Nick Canale. Present. Larry Schick is present. Tricia Peter Clark is excused absent.
Okay, so we have 6 members, so we have a quorum. All right, let's get right into it. The minutes of the last meeting of June 28, 2023, they're in the portal. Did everybody get a chance to review them?
I'll make the motion.
There's a motion to accept the minutes. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Mark Recco, seconded by Nick Canale to accept the minutes. Are there any additions, errors, or corrections? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The notice of the meeting was in the Palladium Times on July 14th, 2023. Treasurer's report. Treasurer's report was also included in our portal for fiscal year June 30th, 2023. Everybody got a chance to look at it. Can I get a motion to accept the treasurer's report? Motion by Tim Stahl, seconded by, sorry.
Kevin, give you a chance. Yeah,
Seconded by Len Schick. Are there any comments or questions?
I'll make a few comments, Gary.
Sure.
If you look at the statements, just a few of the activities in the last month. The closing for the parcel in Richland was held, so the parcel was sold to the town of Richland as planned. So you see that reflected in our fixed assets dropping to 0, and we also have a gain on the sale showing up on the P&L. That's also in the balance sheet on the income statement. Well, a few other things with the pilots. We'll talk a little bit more about one late pilot when we get to the delinquent loan report in executive session, but all but one pilot has been collected and everything's been remitted to the taxing authorities. So you don't see any payable to the taxing authorities. And but for that one pilot, all of the IDA's 10% of the county's portion has been booked in the statement. So it's been a lean summer for closings as it usually is for IDA closings, so we really haven't had new income coming in. And of course this year we have the additional cost of the cost sharing for the OOC succession plan. This is the last, so now we're in July, so July is the last month of our fiscal year. So we are starting to gear up to work with our auditors to complete the financial audit for 7/31. So there'll be a lot of activity on that in the coming weeks.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Are there any more comments or questions on the treasurer's report? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. Wage properties, I think, the multi-mode civic facility revenue. So who's gonna?
Do you want to love to me too? I can just run through it.
Sure.
Yeah, let's do that. So we had this is a request from a bond borrower, OH Properties, which is an affiliate of Oswego Health. They, back in 1999, the IDA issued approximately $4.6 million of taxable debt and about $4 million of tax exempt debt bond financing to support a number of projects that Oswego Health had at that time. So these bonds are very mature and everything's going fine. What's happened is they are switching remarketing agents. A remarketing agent is basically engaged for the entire life of the bond, dealing with trades, etc. of this particular bond the way it was basically sold to the market. So the client has requested that M&T Bank or their affiliate be dismissed, and they're taking on a new remarketing agent, which is Stern Brothers and Company, as the successor. So basically, the resolution in front of us, or for voting today, is to consent to the change of remarketing agent, because we issued the IDA issued this debt as a conduit bond financing. We basically have to consent to the change. So pretty simple transaction. Barclay Damon has reviewed the documents that the new agent has prepared, the documents they reviewed and signed off. So just looking for approval of this fairly administrative change. Any questions?
kind of a narrow and complex profession, right? So there's not, you don't shop these around. I mean, they came to us and we vetted them through our due diligence, and that's the recommendation through Park agents to consent to this change.
They looked at everything and they agreed with all the documents that have been presented to us and have no issues with us.
Okay, so I'll get a motion and a second, then we'll discuss this. Motion by Len Schick, seconded by Barry Trimble. Is there any further discussion or questions regarding this change?
Is there a reason why they don't?
They just stated that M&T wanted to get out, and to be able to do that, they have to have another company come in, and Stern Brothers said that they would come in and do that for the.
Okay. So there's no negative impact whatsoever?
No.
Just an administrative
No.
flaw, right? Okay.
These are bonds that are sold on the open market, and they have to, every week, they have to kind of come up with new rates, and they need to do stuff, so, they have to have, because they weren't privately placed, they have to have a remarketer for the balance of the life of the bonds.
Plus, within the terms and conditions of the bond financing, we authorize any change like this requires our consent.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
What's the life of the bond? How long is it going?
I can tell you in a moment here, Nick, that.
It was 30-year bonds.
It's been 24 already. Nothing will matter.
Yeah, I think they're, here it goes. Issued, 25 years. It was issued in 99 and
So it's 25 years, so it's actually up next year.
less than a year, June 1st.
So it wasn't extended or anything?
No.
It seems odd to take it out for 1 year to go. They just don't want to do that type of
Maybe
that kind
that-
of business altogether.
So one thing I know about these is that it's a very specialized job, and if maybe someone who was at M&T left that was doing that, they may not have the ability to do it going forward.
Fair enough. All right.
Okay, any other questions or comments regarding the consent to change the remarketing agent for Oswego Health? We got a motion, a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, Oswego County Industrial Park expansion.
Yep.
The update?
We can do that. So I've been working with both Dave Turner and Dave Botar with Central New York Regional Planning and Development Board. We've received further clarification from EDA, who has asked us to make the submission for this grant specific to the construction and construction contingency costs related to build out of roads, water, and sewer. By doing this will allow us to segment the project cost to about $5.6 million of the total, which is about over 16 million if you include electric and all and everything else, site readiness costs. So what we have been asked is to submit a grant application with a $4 million request, and it would be a $1.6 million IDA match, so 5.6 million total. And that's specific to, as I said, the construction and contingency costs related to road, water, and sewer. As you know, the IDA has allocated up to 2.5 million for the project, but this would allow us to keep 900,000 set aside towards the engineering, legal, and other soft costs. They don't want to have that as part of the application. They want to keep it specific to construction and those costs. So we are making our revisions to the scope of work submitted. Remember the Build Back Regional Challenge we had submitted to EDA before. That was for a $5.25 million grant. So it's we're skinning it down a little bit from 5.25 to 4 for the request through EDA. And we have talked to EDA, and they're comfortable with us submitting this by August 11th. We feel comfortable as well because of the minimal change to scope of work. So we still are going to be requesting a $10 million grant through Fast New York, which would cover the other costs. So EDA is pretty limited in scope of what they'll cover. They'll only cover like public infrastructure costs. They will not cover private infrastructure costs, so electric and gas and those sorts of things that they wouldn't do under this. And the fact that they have asked us to only submit for 4 million tells us that we have a pretty good shot of getting 4 million if we can keep our scope limited, and then we'll get the funding through other funding through other sources. So between EDA, Fast New York, National Grid, and IDA matching funds, we should be able to solicit the full project cost of 16.75 million, with this being the first major component piece to be secured outside of the IDA funds. I've gone through the budget. If we reduce out the engineering and soft costs, which is about $900,000 of the project cost, if we reduce out the site readiness, site work of 1.19 million, and then administration costs of 50,000, we get it right down to 5.6 million total cost. So see how we can do it. We have a path forward on this. We will limit and narrow that scope, and we'll have this submitted in 3 weeks' time.
So my question would be, how does this impact any future grant applications as far as the local match? If we're putting our eggs, most of our eggs into this basket,
We should
are
not.
is that gonna be considered as money spent towards the same project in
Well,
regard to future?
we'll still be able to utilize it for state grant funding. What we won't be able to do is use it for other federal grant funding. But the problem with other federal grant funding we found is that if you get a grant through EDA, you're not gonna get a grant through HUD. So I mean, it's gonna be an issue anyway to try to double dip on those funds. So it should not be any issue related to, because what we're gonna consider when we revise our application for Fast New York is that we're gonna, with the assumption or the optimism that we're gonna get this $4 million, that's gonna be part of that project. So while we're limiting our scope on this application, our application to Fast New York is gonna be for the whole thing, and show the 2.5 million, and it's gonna show the soft costs as well as the electric and gas infrastructure. So it's not gonna, should not impact this at all. This is very customary when you're applying to multiple different entities for different grants. That we did want to make sure that we backed out that 900,000 out of the application for the soft cost, because they want to see that their funding is going strictly to the hard costs related to the project. So if we back that out, they just see it as the IDA match towards hard costs, their money towards hard costs. It's okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there a time frame? What would be the time frame for this?
So we're trying to get this in as a fiscal year 23 project, which is why we're looking to get it in by August 11th. I don't have a specific deadline on it. I can tell you that the EDA representative who represents our area at Hummel is going to be retiring by the end of the year, so he wants to get this done, and that's why we want to get this in now, so he can get this as one of his projects before the end of the year. So I would say before the end of the year we'll know, but other than that, I don't have a definitive timeline.
Is this in coordination with what the town of Schuylkill's doing and the village of Phoenix, or is this something that we're just?
This is separate. We do not need to have, I am getting letters from both that they are aware and they're in support of our project, but it's not contingent on what they're doing in their locations. They're not co-applicants, let's say that.
But
The idea is
we're coordinating their work, their activities
absolutely.
with the work that we need, so we're not overlapping on what has to be done to get that site
Yes.
prepared.
Originally, we were looking to try to see if that EDA funding we could do something with the Village of Phoenix for their project, but this is where it comes in. They already have HUD funding in that project, so they can't double dip. You can't get both EDA and HUD, so they made a determination to stay with the HUD funding that they have. We be the sole applicant related to the EDA funding.
So that's good. I mean, I'm glad that the three, the two municipalities and us are communicating, so we know we're not stepping one project over another.
It was a concern of mine, and that was a lot of the discussion we had between Dave Turner and Dave Botar and myself was about that, making sure that we had that coordination and we're not
Perfect.
leaving something out.
This is part of the extended deadline, or is this a separate?
This is different. Yeah, it says deadline that's state funding.
No, I thought that's-
Yeah.
Is there any more questions or comments on what Austin's doing? The board, the idea is doing awesome. Very good. Very good job.
Well, let's not say good job until we get it secured, so.
At least we're trying.
Moving in the right direction.
That's right.
We are.
Well, if we get the money allocated by the end of the year, we're looking at next year to start doing some of this work, or?
That would be the hope. Now, that is where we have to worry about the double dipping on things like that. If we start doing that and get a project complete, it'll be difficult to say that we have that funding in the bank allocated for as a match on another thing. So we are gonna have to very quickly also update our Fast New York application to make sure that this is in there and that, because a lot of times with the state funding, they could say, as long as their approval happens, or the award happens before the funding is spent, you're okay. If you started spending all that money and doing that before, then whatever you've spent may then become not eligible as a match towards. This is a new program, they're Fast New York, and it's supposed to be a easier to use than their other programs, but it's also a very new program, so we haven't seen it actually in action in terms of somebody work through that process. So I'd rather err on the side of caution on that and not spend it until we know we have it.
Makes sense.
Okay, any other questions or comments for Austin? Again, nice job, Austin. Just keep us informed and hopefully it's just, we get these grants and everything in place. Moving down to number 6, the solar project pilot deviation policy in Austin.
I can do that. So at our last meeting, it was Mark Greco had brought up, could we look at some alternatives to how we are currently doing things, where we are offering a sales tax exemption to solar projects just because they're able to apply for it. It is part of the package of benefits that are available through IDAs. So we've done some research in terms of what other alternatives we could look at. And so really and I just want to make clear, we are not asking for a vote today. This, for some of the people here, this is probably new to them. And what I'd like to do is really push the 3 options, at least the 3 options that currently exist. Let this marinate a month, and also based on what we look to do, also ask for some input from the county and other entities that this would impact. But so the 3 options really are, the first option is that you make no changes. You kind of just do what you're continuing to do. It's still an option to not do anything. The second option is look at and say, we would not provide any sales tax exemptions for solar projects. It's not something that is offered by the IDA, which that would also require a change to the solar deviation policy, because that is currently not how it is stated in our policy. And the third, which this is what we've done the most amount of actual research on, because this would be a little bit different, this would be something that would be unique and creative that our IDA would do, is look at changing our solar deviation policy to require solar projects to pay a community host benefit fee to receive sales tax exemptions. A community host benefit fee, depending on how it's structured, could be, the way that we researched it, and it looked like it would potentially work. And think of it this way, so the IDA a couple of years ago started to require any solar project that was going to receive benefits to develop a decommissioning plan with the community that it was located in. So it was not up to us. It wasn't our decommissioning plan. It was just requiring that that they had to have that with the locality. And similarly, we could look at a community host benefit fee where, to be able to provide and this is not all benefits, but the sales tax exemption benefit, if they so chose to pursue that they would be required to pay a community host benefit fee negotiated between the community and the project. So we could look to provide advisement to each of the municipalities about how they could calculate that formula. However, similarly to the decommissioning bond or plan, or however they do that, that is up to the municipality. So they have some local flavor to do that. And the reason, and this was discussed with Barclay Damon, is that by leaving the communities to have that autonomy, we are not running into issues with the authority budget office, where the cost of it is controlled by us, the funding is controlled by us. By leaving it in the local community's hands, all we're doing is saying that this is a requirement if you want to receive that benefit. So,
And it's, if, I guess I was just thinking that if a municipality wanted more than what was reasonable, would that stop the project, number one? Or would it be in lieu of sales tax, a negotiated?
yeah, so good question. What we had discussed before at our last meeting, and this is something that we would obviously, if this was the road that was decided to go down, come up with what we determined to be a potentially a fair fee. What we were discussing would be if the sales tax exemption is 4% goes to the county, 4% goes to the state. You could say that whatever the portion would have been the county portion of it would be what that fee is.
Mhm.
So it'd be 50% of what the sales tax exemption would be as a fee to the local community. And the reasoning, and I'll let Kevin kind of talk about this a little bit as well. The reasoning that we looked at it that way is that one, if it's not flowing through the IDA, we don't have to worry about it through the authority budget office. And two, the local municipality is the one who has to live with these projects. They're the ones who are seeing these projects in their backyard. They're the ones having any potential impact to quality of life. And they're also the ones that are receiving the smallest amount of the actual pilot payment on these things, because these things are divided on a pro rata basis to each of the taxing authorities. And in most cases, not all cases, but in most cases, the local town or village is the smallest portion of that pro rata distribution. So they're the ones that have to live with it, and then they're getting the smallest amount of benefit from it. So this could be a way to try to help compensate communities who are having to get these projects. So for example, the town of Oswego, when they had gotten that project, if they had something like this, they would have been able to potentially have gotten, if the project had seeked that sales tax exemption, they would have had to pay a fee negotiated with the town. Now the town probably wouldn't be able to do it, negotiate on a case-by-case basis, a different fee. They'd probably have to adopt some sort of a thing that would then be applied, and I guess that's where the details come in on something like that. But, if say for example, that happened and say the fee is $100,000, the town could then use that to build a new park, improve something, and improve quality of life for what they're getting as a, potentially a decrease in quality of life to some people. So that is one of the options there. And that's why I don't think it's not appropriate for us to look at voting on something today when we haven't really had a chance for everyone to think about it, to bring it to the entities that would be impacted by this, one being the county and then also the communities.
Just a thought.
Mhm.
If we just did no sales tax exemption, then the town could take that sales tax and use it for whatever they wanted for, right?
Town doesn't get the
Town doesn't, the county gets it.
Yeah, but we give a portion to the towns.
Yeah.
There's a portion that does go back to the towns.
So I guess the only thing with this, and I think it is a good elegant model.
I don't know where that sales tax is collected on solar projects. I don't know that it's being paid in Oswego County. I'm not.
It's very possible that if they were to buy it outside of the county.
They're buying stuff in Albany or Syracuse and trucking it here. I don't,
Exactly, so this
or
could
New York
be,
City for
this
that
could be
matter.
a good way for us to move the money
Delta
into
and
the
Oswego.
county. There'd be a
To ensure
direct-
the money stays in the
Yeah,
county.
that's what we're planning there.
There'd be a direct
Yeah.
increase in the town or village that the
Right.
project's going in. The concern, I think that Len brought up, it's a good one, is could they unduly hold the project up because they don't want the project or
If
something like that?
the alternative is we don't give the sales tax exemption.
Right.
All they're gonna do is not get the sales tax exemption. They can
No, I
still
mean,
go forward with the
What if
project.
the town or village wants to use this as a tool to not allow the project to go forward? That's the only concern that I would have, especially.
But they still, the only way they can stop the project from going forward is if they have zoning and other laws that are gonna allow them to stop it from being built. Because they're not gonna stop us from doing the pilot.
No, but maybe that's part of the discussion we would have to have is kind of, if they, for example, if they could not, the town could not come up with a plan that would allow those folks to, I mean, I guess at that point they could just say, you know what, never mind, we won't take the mortgage tax exemption, we'll just.
Yeah,
or
sales tax
we'll just move
That's-
forward.
Right.
That's
So
what
it's
we
not
thought.
like they have the keys here.
That's why we haven't said it would be applied to all of the
Sure.
benefits. It would just be the sales tax and potentially mortgage reporting tax exemption. The sales tax exemption is the one that makes the sense to me. That's the one that was brought up.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I mean, this is not unique to a lot of projects we've done in Onondaga County and other areas throughout the state. Host community benefits, community benefits agreements and things. And it's worked out very well. We've yet to have one project, not happen because of that.
Right.
And they were on, actually that was on, sales tax exemption, whatever the IDA did was intact, but they also added this to it.
Mhm.
And it could be a litany of things. It could be financing, could be projects that the town in the developer and rent, like a park or whatever. Could be, local labor, it could be anything, it's up to their imagination, and I think the one thing that they have to be sensitive to is if the sales tax, say, is $100,000, that's what they're looking at, as far as what they're trying to gain out of it.
Yeah.
But from everything we've dealt with solar projects and everything, I don't think this would be a deal breaker by any means. If the project is viable, it's good, it's profitable, they're gonna build it.
I agree.
If it does provide a benefit, it would be an upfront benefit to the community instead of a very long-term,
And
tax,
plus-
small.
We're talking with Austin and Kevin, this is instead of trying to eliminate sales tax, eliminate this, which could run into issues with the state and the ABO, this is a good alternative
Mhm.
that Barclay Damon recommended and Kevin concurred that would kind of answer the questions of not having a sales tax, but also have some benefits to the communities.
We have some boilerplate language ready for the communities so that they have something to start with or a place to begin and
Yeah,
suggestions of 4% and not 15% or what?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I think are worthy of further development and discussion here. One is, a formula, right? A general formula for the benefit. Maybe an amount not to exceed, whatever that 4% number is, because it's gonna change from project to project. And then secondly, educating the municipalities on what they can and can't do or some of the pitfalls, because you can't just, in my opinion, put it into your general fund because that's gonna mess up your tax cap issue, right? You've got to create some type of a reserve fund, a dedicated fund for some purpose. It can be very specific, like Gary mentioned, development of parkland, or it can be probably a little more general, but it's gotta be a reserve account because those reserve accounts don't impact your tax cap issue as much as just.
An economic or community development
So-
benefit.
But it, fundamentally, it empowers each town to decide how they wanna use this money that they're receiving, and that, bears repeating, I think. I mean, I've sat through enough municipal board meetings, I know Tim has, Mark has, I'm sure, that, the number one complaint with respect to the solar projects is what does the local community get out of this?
Right.
We get all the headaches and we get nothing for it.
Right.
Big deal, we get a pilot, a couple of $1,000s a year. Well, this is actually real money. And when you look at some of the other projects around the state that have utilized this type of host community benefit, it wasn't necessarily in exchange for sales tax exemption, but it was something similar. You're talking real money, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
This is a little bit unique in that the IDA is utilizing their incentive tools to try to provide a benefit back to the communities. In other cases, that's just something that the communities have done.
Well, just going back to what you said, will we run into any trouble because, should we stay away from this being a sales tax swap, or should we just go, we expect this community benefit as part of our union tax instead of saying, well, in lieu of taxes? Because I don't feel we're gonna run into trouble with that, if we mention that it's in lieu of taxes in any way.
The way I understood it is we just dropped the sales tax exemption. It's not part of our, again, correct me if I'm wrong, we're not gonna have that in our policy anymore, but the host community benefit, the community benefit agreement will be part of it. Mortgage tax, yes.
Exemption stuff to be there.
Well, the sales tax exemption would only be a viable benefit if they have a negotiated community host benefit with similar to the decommissioning bond. We say we won't do this if they don't have a decommissioning
A
bond.
little different, because as Barry pointed out, you do have to grant the exemption because the developer needs to present the certificates for sales tax exemption to the vendors, right, to get that exemption. So that has to be issued. But in lieu of, or in addition to, I suppose, the exemption itself, there is a host community benefit that is equal to roughly half of the sales tax exemption, right? So it's not,
Right.
you're granting the sales tax exemption, but you're also providing a host community benefit. So you're getting half of, fundamentally, I mean, you're getting the full
Oh, right.
sales tax exemption, but you're paying the
Right.
community benefit.
Peter and Paul.
Yeah.
Well, to Len's point, so if the town was unreasonable, if we're not gonna, we want, $10 million in this agreement, could they then say, well, we'll just waive the sales tax exemption, that it'll go away?
Yeah.
Then they don't have to
Can
negotiate.
you waive
with the town.
half of it? I don't believe so.
What's wrong with in lieu of the county portion, cause that's what we're talking about, right? I mean, what's wrong with just saying in lieu of the county portion of the tax exemption, the municipalities may negotiate an X amount of dollars or X some value with the solar company.
So then they still have to pay the state portion?
Yeah,
You can't,
the states, they're gonna have, yeah, I mean, we can't just drop the state portion.
Yeah, but
Essentially, that's what we're doing.
we looked at that one though, and we can't administer that, because when the IDA issues an exemption, a contractor or subcontractor could walk into Raby's Ace with a certificate from us, or any Ace anywhere in New York State, and get the full 8% exempted, so we can't, it's not a 8% or 4%, it's
Oh,
the
you
full
can't
exemption,
do
no matter
that.
where that's, in any county, they could present that certificate in New York State and get the full,
Right, they can't charge a partial.
whatever, or this,
So
whatever
that
sales tax is.
8% goes to the state takes that 8% and gives the county back for it?
No,
Well,
it's-
without an exemption, right?
Yeah.
Without an exemption, you're collecting your 8% vendor, they report it to the state, and then, I think periodically throughout the year, or quarterly, I think it is.
Yeah, this
there's a
county gets
portion
money,
that gets
yeah.
to the-
Right.
it's,
But yeah, it's just, you remit it to, as a retailer, you remit it to the state divvies it out, because
but
it's
it's a
one,
bit of an unknown,
not a local
I mean,
sales.
I've talked to Rich Mitchell about it, it's a
Nobody to know.
very unknown formula, the state does not share how they divide up and collect and distribute. I mean, they get a check, right?
Yeah,
And then the local municipalities get a check from the county, or maybe in some case, I think the city of Oswego gets one directly from the state. But you don't have there's no
Itemized.
true up, itemization of what it was
Where it's
last
coming
quarter.
from, right, there's no way, there's no
So
formula set.
this way, at least,
okay.
it gives the local community some say. We clearly can't administer this from the state level because we would then be,
Alright, I see.
surpassing our authority, right?
So then the exemption is for the full 8%?
It's for the full 8%, but again, there's money coming back from the developer equal to, and again, it's a formula, but for the sake of argument, equal to the county portion, the local share, 4% of the sales tax. So you need to provide us with proof that you've negotiated with the local community a host community benefit that equals up to, right, 4% of your project cost.
I think we do need to be careful that negotiation of what that actual fee is with the community and not the IDA, so that we are not gonna run into issues with this. We can provide advisement and for uniformity, so that we don't have one community doing this deal and this community doing this deal, we could provide that advisement, but ultimately that decision comes down to the community. I mean, the community could also say, our community benefit fee is $1. I mean, that's to them to negotiate. Similar to like they wanted to do a decommissioning plan, if they wanted to agree that $1 is sufficient, they could.
Well,
That's
recall,
theoretical, though, that would never happen.
Williamstown did
Correct.
not have a decommissioning plan, right?
We-
But, town of Oswego or town of Oswego or other towns in the city does, right? All we as a board are looking to do is verify that you've entered into some type of a discussion that resulted in a decision made on a decommissioning plan. We're not controlling the amount, the length, anything about it. We just wanna know that you developer and you local municipality have talked about it and you've put something together,
Mhm.
or not.
And related to this, I think that we just need to understand that there is something that's been developed if we go this path and go with this model. And that's why, and I also want to make sure that we run this by, because this is a redistribution of really of tax money, if you're talking about that way, that it's something that is acceptable to the county, because ultimately that's what you're doing, is you're saying that you would have gotten this, and so you're getting it, they're getting it now.
But But here's the bigger picture of that, right? As I think Barry pointed out, is that you don't know where that sales tax is gonna get paid.
Right.
It may
That's
not
true.
belong to Oswego County, so this way we guarantee
Stays in the
this
borders.
stays in the borders, right? Yeah.
The other thing, and I think
that would
that,
be an acceptable arrangement.
How do you audit this?
Kevin,
I mean,
how do you audit this?
How do you audit it?
well, that's why you're keeping it out of our hands.
That's up to the town, I mean,
It's up to the
we would just
town.
make sure there's an agreement in
Yeah.
place that the town has approved.
And before closing, we need to show that they've made that, either they're paying it at closing or before
Would it
closing.
make more sense to maybe look at it doing through the county? I mean, I know some of these towns and villages, like you, Kevin, you just said, the decommissioning plan, I mean, that was something that we were adamant needed to be taken care of, but the reality is there's only so much we can do with some of the towns and villages, lack of planning, lack of zoning, lack of whatever. I mean, does it make sense to at least look into seeing if it would make more sense to go through the county and then maybe to be distributed to the towns or villages?
You know, you're gonna have to have, I have not had a discussion with the county attorney on this and in what form that would be, but it strikes me that it would have to be, again, some type of a reserve account
Mhm.
that then you could apply locally, distributed locally to the impacted municipality. And I don't know what form that would result in, that again gets, you know, maneuvers the county out of a sales tax issue or a tax cap issue,
Yeah.
you know, every year.
But the main reason to think about it is currently, I mean, what we would be doing, you're right, we would be taking the current process, which takes that money, puts it in the county's hands from the state, to then be distributed according to a formula we know. And we're now taking and bypassing the county completely. The county piece of that is going to be missing. There's already a process in place for distributing the sales tax revenue to towns and villages. It just as part of the conversation, we do talk to the county and, you know, the treasurer and these folks, we're cutting them out. It is a stronger benefit to the community, and my hope would be that folks would see it as such. It would be a change in the way.
The way I look at it is the county's already being cut out as it is currently. You know, I mean, if we provide the exemption, they're not getting it.
Right.
So it's not, nobody's getting it. So it's something that, you know, yes, but at the same time, as the way it currently works, if we're providing that benefit, they're not getting it already, so it's, you know.
And if they go buy these solar panels in Dutchess County,
Oh, yeah.
they're not gonna get it then either.
No, I agree.
Right.
No, I get that.
One
Can I
last,
just
oh
chime in?
yes,
Can I just chime in?
Yeah.
Can kind of make sense, because we can't control, right, all the different municipalities, right?
Mhm.
They may have put an agreement in, they may not, but by this way, we could protect all of them by saying, hey, we're gonna get this fund for you, and we're gonna, you know, however, the county can make the decision for all the towns that way, instead of kind of nitpicking about whether or not they put in an agreement or they don't put in an agreement. If we make it a standard thing,
we haven't looked into that. I mean, that's, I think we'd have to look into the opportunity for that. I think because other communities have done this, I think like, there's other communities around the state that have done this. I don't know of a county that has done this, so
I was gonna ask, is there a county precedent? That's what we
that's,
really need.
I don't know about that. We do know at the local level there is.
well, the original example, if I remember correctly, that Kevin gave was somewhere over in Schenectady area or someplace like that, that they did a 2% split, something to that effect, and I don't know, but I'm more concerned about, all right, we can't control municipalities, right? Some of them are very good and organized, some of them are not. Right? We can all agree on that, right? So they have plans in place or they don't have plans in place, and that's something that I wanted to talk to you about after the meeting. If we can centralize it, then it's standard. There's no question as to what the formula is, how it's gonna work, who gets the money, you know, if they have a plan in place, if they don't have, we'll have a plan in place and it'll be formulated that way.
You know, just like Kevin works with Phoenix, he works with a lot of municipalities.
Sure.
Graham Sutter works with a lot of municipalities, he's worked with solar projects before. If it goes through the county, and the county regulates or, you know, are you talking about overseeing it and dispersing it back?
Yeah, exactly.
So the town would have to say, okay, county, and again, I'm just generalizing here, we're gonna build a brand new park, this is what we're gonna do with our money, the county would okay it, and then it would be in effect?
Well, that's something that would have to be ironed out about how that was gonna work out. That's something, certainly, but the funds would then be uniform is what I'm
Because
saying.
I'm more in favor of putting the onus on the town,
Yeah, I just really
municipality,
think the county.
because that way, it takes the county, it takes the IDA out of, you know, the discussion, just like with decommissioning. takes the county out of it for decommissioning and.
I don't know if they're gonna also, the state may look at that and say, well, you're just
The one thing that
finding a
you,
new way to charge sales tax without
the
getting
one,
state
the
involved.
one point that you bring up that Nick and Kevin brought up too, is a lot of the communities, mine included, need to be educated on what a host benefit agreement is and how you can use it and how much it is, which I think with the legal, the council we have, can be done very easily.
A lot of these municipalities, particularly like the zoning and planning boards, they have an annual requirement for continuing education. And the more recent classes that have been offered by the state and some of the partners there, Tugville Commission, et cetera, are very heavy. I think you probably participated in those, right?
Many of them.
Very heavily slanted towards solar and wind power, again, host community benefits, things of that nature. So I think that the communities are getting a little more educated. I think we can educate them even more and offer them some model local laws to consider. Because again, the biggest issue is going to be how they set it up so that it doesn't impact sales cap or tax cap issues. It has to be some type of a reserve fund. The one example that I pointed out a meeting or two ago was, I think it was the town of either it's Greenfield or Greenville down in the Hudson Valley. And, you know, they established a reserve fund for development of parkland. So the solar developer would pay into it, and then they would take that money, put it into a reserve account to establish parkland. Because the whole idea was, when you're taking usable land away from the town to put your solar panels up, and you know we're not really getting anything in return, so the town established this fund, and so that's what the developer pays into, and then they utilize that specifically to develop parkland.
I understand that completely, but here's the thing, each town is different, right?
Exactly.
Each town might wanna use that money for wastewater infrastructure or
Yeah.
for, you know,
Right.
utility improvements or whatever it is that they need specific to that
Right.
town. So if we locked it into parkland,
I'm not suggesting.
no, I'm just saying, so we have to word this in such a way so that the town could
The
kind of
town
create a
would
separate
have to
fund
Yeah.
and decide where they want to put the
How
fund.
did Palermo do that? Did we ask?
I have not.
Yeah, they asked and see, Marty was here.
Mhm.
You guys probably know Marty.
Yes.
Did they do a host benefit agreement?
That's what I heard. I'm not sure of it, but they did their own deal. It didn't come through here.
Right. We were looking at saying, how can we use the tools available at the IDA to kind of, to to catalyze this, you know, in terms of the towns doing it on their own. Like I said, I think at this point, I mean, I think it's very good to have this conversation and us to talk about this. You know, I'm not gonna say it's a half-baked idea, I think it's about a 90%, we just gotta kind of come up with the details on something like this and how it could be structured, and I absolutely think we need to have that conversation with the county before we make a decision here, because it would be impacting county funds.
Well, it'd be nice to know if an IDA, even another state, has done this. Just anything for a precedent.
Barclay Dana did say we were within our rights to do it, just that it hasn't been done in this way
Would
before.
it need to go to the municipality? Could it go through a local development corporation or some other nonprofit that would be tasked with some sort of countywide mission? I mean, just kind of curious if there might be another even more interesting way of doing it.
I don't know, I mean, it comes down to the whole home rule idea of, you know, you're doing something and you're making them have this, but do they have any say in that? You know, if you kind of take it right out of their hands, it's
I mean, the reality is right now, we're getting zero, right? So when we come up with a plan, it's going to benefit this community better than what we've done for the last 22 of these, or 23, right? So maybe we, you know, I like, this is excellent, I appreciate what you put together here. Maybe there is even more we can kind of come up with. We did a study at the city of Oswego last year, 2 years ago, about something very similar to this, where they talked about an arts and cultural project or program, where the businesses coming in would come into this fund, a community-wide fund that could then be used to do some of these, offset the cost of things that don't necessarily make money, museums, childcare, things like that. Could be an interesting way of looking at it as well.
I think it could be used for all those.
Sure, it could be, but I think if we make it a general fund that's county-wide, it takes out the factor of this, that the town of Parrish is not seeing any direct benefit from a solar
Right,
farm
that's why I
going into
didn't
their
say
area.
go.
Right, so I think if you put it into, I think it'd be great to take the money and put it into a infrastructure fund that we're gonna use to build sewers all over the town, all over the county, but it might be 40 years before Paris season. You know what I mean? So, it's, yeah.
I agree
You know what I'm
exactly what
saying?
you're saying, that community's being impacted by this, and some of them are unhappy about it.
Right.
Particularly in the town of Oswego, right? That story came up, a lot of people were happy with it, some people weren't happy with it, you know, it's the same old thing, we're never
It'd
gonna.
be a lot
make
easier for the
everybody
town to justify if they can say, hey, that project generated this fee, which is gonna create a new park that we would not have had otherwise.
something positive for the community that they can sell it, but it's not gonna, it's still
For
gonna
the
hard
town.
to
50
swallow.
grand or 100 grand is,
Right.
is going to this town and then we're gonna have it
The
to
whole
do something with.
point of the conversation is to make it a little less, I guess, how am I gonna word
Less
this?
onerous on the town to have to.
Yeah, well, those people that don't want it, right? I mean, obviously they're making money by putting these things in. There's a benefit. There's a cost benefit analysis that these solar companies are making that, hey, we don't care whether or not the town wants it, we're gonna put it here anyway because it's close to the grid, it's close to whatever. So they should have to compensate the town for whatever
Yeah, I mean,
inconvenience
the
that
argument
they
is
don't want.
that this goal is to, incentivize the town to enjoy the project more. Than you guys are completely right. If the argument is, if we get zero now, if we did nothing, then the county, right, is going to get 4, which then they'll redistribute, so the town will get some tiny portion of that, and that is only assuming it's purchased within our county limits, which
Right.
probably isn't, right? So if that's kind of our boundaries, get nothing, get everything for the town, somewhere in between would still benefit the town, but it would not be that strong, hey, look, we are, this project is directly helping you. So I think that's just the conversation, is which one are we looking to do?
And if you think about it, I mean, I think if we develop a policy with host benefits or community benefits, empower the town to develop it and stuff, I think that would give them, a lot more satisfaction as far as how to use the money, where to put it, and whatever. The only thing that would be required is, just like we do with the decommissioning, Kevin has to get some sort of decommissioning plan that's agreed upon. There would have to be some sort of community benefit, host benefit agreement that would be part of our solar policy that we would have to receive to say, okay, they've fulfilled every requirement that we put on it. And if the town signs off on it, whether it's a park, a museum,
Whatever it is they want, whatever it is they need.
infrastructure,
They need.
that's not anything for us to decide. The town decides what do they need the most.
Well, and I guess the point, I'm sorry,
No,
the point of this whole thing, I guess, in the end is, do we need solar farms in Oswego County? From what I understand, we produce more power here than we can get out now. I mean, for Cayuga County, we had that conversation with them, it's a big benefit to have these solar farms come in. And they talk about community solar. Do our communities need solar? We have so much power here. We've got hydro plants, we've got nuke plants. Do we need these solar farms decorating our roadways? I guess that's really the issue.
And it's
Those are more local power
Sure.
suppliers.
Yeah.
With Micron, the other businesses that are coming in, we're gonna, they had a meeting the other day about the nuclear plants, about transmission lines. They talked about next generation facilities, 100, 200, 500 megawatt plants that are modularly built. They can be put near communities or businesses or whatever. So those things are being looked at, hopefully not in the too distant future. But the solar farms right now are part of the state's plan and stuff just to cut carbon emissions.
Well, it's a lot different conversation. It used to be about these things, is we had a ton of farmland in this county going fallow, and this was a way to protect it for 20 years. They go from getting nothing for it because it was farmland to a pilot. And that's how it was right up until the Oswego stuff and people started kicking up. That was what my brain was going on. That's what drove this whole.
The farmers get something out of it because they're getting selling the land and they're getting a lease.
They're
Of the land.
getting pilots, or at least getting some taxes, they're keeping the land from going fallow.
And after 20 years or 25 years, the land can be returned back to farming because it's taken care of.
That was the whole deal for these things back when we set this, or when I got.
correct.
Could we look at maybe talking to some of the towns and villages and just get a feel from them if there's something maybe we're not thinking about? Like, I think of some of, you're right, town of this week, I don't want to name them, but there are a number of them I think that would absolutely love this idea. They're set up with a structure that could probably handle it. I just don't know if that's true across the board, and the majority of these projects are ending up in places, not the majority, but a lot of these projects are ending up in places where maybe the town board isn't quite as able to handle it. Maybe they don't have that infrastructure in place. I just don't know those towns and villages well enough to say,
Yeah.
is this asking a lot of them? Maybe we just have a,
Well,
the next couple of weeks,
that-
just chat with them.
And that was why we were talking about, potentially providing as an advisement, this is what we would advise it to be. And if you want to adopt it, you can adopt it instead of trying to, figure out a new way to create the wheel. We give you the wheel, you can adopt it or not. Obviously, someone else wants to do something different. The
I
other
mean,
thing,
they had to do that with decommissioning, I
correct.
mean, they had to
That's
learn.
sort of the model we're
decommissioning.
looking at here.
But I have a question, is that if this solar company gets a tax exemption,
Mhm.
sales tax exemption, then why are they involved? They're losing, I mean, they get nothing, right?
What do you mean?
The county gets no benefit.
Correct, as of now, yes.
I mean, they get no benefit.
Yep.
So
They get the
why,
pilot, but they don't get the sales tax exemption.
right, so what's the big deal on the county side? I mean, they're not getting it anyways.
That's
And if we
nothing to
do-
the county.
It's
It's nothing to the county.
Yeah, it's nothing to the
Well, I
county.
think
and-
then the argument would be, at least what was brought up was potentially we stop that and now we go back to the full 8% and the county would get 4% back. I think that's the other end of the goalpost, right? So I think
Yeah,
that was at least.
but
that
right
was
now,
initial
The
thought.
sales tax exemption amounts more to when I'm looking at these, and I could be wrong, Kevin, it amounts total more than the whole entire pilot for the 15 or 20 years. So the sales tax exemption is greater than the entire pilot. So that's why I was looking at it going, why are we doing this?
so are you trying
Yeah.
to get more money for the county? I mean, you want us to, do away with the sales tax exemption so the county gets their 4%?
No, that's not the point. The point is to make it so that the solar companies have to make it a little less advantageous for them to come here.
Well, I will say that there's
Let's raise the money.
two things that I want to state is that as of now, because it's a solar project, they can look at their application, they can be very aggressive and say that all of our costs are subject to sales tax because there's no fee back that's a check to them to say, but if we were to say this going forward, okay, well, 50% of whatever that benefit would have been, you actually have to pay to the community as a thing. They're probably going to start looking at that a lot better and saying, well, actually our cost subject to sales tax is not $1 million, it's $500,000. Because right now,
That's why I was asking, how do you audit it?
right. Well, this is how you do it: is that you say you're going to be okay. That $80,000 of sales tax exemption you would have got on that $1 million means you got to pay $40,000 of that to the community. Oh well, actually, it's only going to be $500,000, so the fee's smaller. So you're actually it's a way to check them and actually reduce the amount that they're actually requesting. Because a lot of times they're not going to use it all, but if there's no cost to applying for getting a sales tax exemption of that.
Exemption. It's a one-time exemption of sales tax, right, for the development cost, not an ongoing,
Right.
so.
Yeah, but there's
There's a
nothing really
window of like
ongoing
a
in
year
solar
when
farm,
you're-
right? What
2 years
Yeah.
usually.
what unregulated
No, I know,
most of
but I
the
think,
construction's
I mean,
done.
your point was that the sales tax exemption is often greater than the pilot. And
The
for-
few
for
that I've
maybe
looked
the
at here,
local share, is, but I mean, at $5,000 per megawatt, most of these are, 15,
Yeah.
or, 3 to 5 megawatts. I mean, that's 15 to 25,000 annually, 2%.
For 15.
There have been some, I mean, there have been some, I guess I have
Yeah.
to look at it. It's like if it's 2.5, we've had plenty that are 3 or 2.5, 2.25 megawatts, so it's,
Yeah.
3 is 15,000 a year, 20 years is 300,000, the sales tax exemption.
What are those total project costs? Just I should know this.
Between $4 and $8 million, something like
4
that.
to 8 million.
So if you say a project that comes to us and says $4 million would be subject to sales tax, so based on that, $320,000 would be the sales tax exemption being provided on a project that may be close to what their total 20-year pilot agreement is. In some cases, not all cases, but
And everything is Barry can attest to this. You got to break out the labor costs too.
Yeah, that there's no way that they're having that much to add.
right.
Sure.
So
But that's what they're requesting.
That's what they're
There's
doing,
no-
that's a good point, it
Yeah.
doesn't hurt them.
Right, and if they do have cost overruns, well, they have an exemption that provides them to cover it. So this, I think, keeps them honest.
I agree.
I could be wrong, but the few since I've been here on these solar farms, the sales tax exemption.
I mean,
has
we go,
been
and
greater than
Mark, I could go.
I brought it up in the meetings. Yeah.
Mark, or I think, town, the Oswego one might have been like that, but I believe it was 2.25 megawatts, so.
if they
I
charge
mean, about
total
12,000 a
project
year.
cost. But if you do material,
Yeah, the taxable material isn't,
that cuts
What the money they're
way
getting.
down.
they can say what they want here, the only money they're saving is when they buy something.
Right.
True, right,
So
and it
if
might
they
not even
buy
be
it-
bought here,
so if they
what are they
buy-
buying here?
Oh, if they bought $400,000 worth of stuff on this $4 million thing,
Mhm.
then they're saving $32,000.
Certainly gonna be buying concrete, right?
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so and the other guardrail is, and the reason looking at doing this way would be, if there is a community that wants to be unreasonable and say that, well, our fee is gonna be $10 million. That's the fixed fee, if you wanna get this, then all they're doing is that they're saying that there's not gonna be a sales tax exemption on the project. And so then the state and the county then get the sales tax still on the project. It doesn't kill the project.
To answer your other
Some
question,
states
do
want
we
it,
want it
some
at all?
counties
Some
does.
yeah.
Right, so.
Well, I mean, I guess.
That's another question.
Are we full? Do we need any more? I guess that's the real issue.
Well-
Is there really still a need to have them here and they're being forced, in some
That's
cases,
a whole
forced on
different thing.
communities and
Yeah.
getting to the point that there's
I
really.
don't know how
hard to
many
stop
more we're
them.
gonna see, because
We-
the grid is pretty,
Well, that's the point,
the
right?
grid is pretty well full.
Yeah,
Yeah, no.
Kevin and I have discussed this too, that they're based on, I mean, there's a lot of things going on right now. The state may look at, taxing these differently, where that removes the incentive for I mean, there's all sorts of things that could happen that could remove our ability to help a project, because we can't help incentivize it in a way that would have been able to in the past. The other thing is as you said, most of these substations they have a queue. They have a waiting list for these. So if you're not in and you hit limit, no new projects are coming in. I don't know if the horse is out of the barn. Like, in terms of is there going to be demand for more solar projects? I don't know.
Well, it's better we fix it than just hope
Sure.
it doesn't.
Oh yeah. I think it's better to put it in place, and if you do have more, then you have it. And then the other thing this would impact is any of those large solar projects that come to the NDA.
This is a great discussion, and this is something that, Austin, Kevin, and, can kind of wrap around a little bit and develop some sort of policy with all the ideas that we put forward. I mean, we're not gonna vote on it today, we probably won't even vote on it next meeting,
I think it's a great tool.
right? I do too.
It's a good conversation.
Yes.
If they don't want to do it, they have other avenues, they can deal
And
directly with
I like the idea of hiring the towns too, giving the towns empowerment. And Kevin and I were just talking, between him, Graham Sider, and a couple other attorneys that work with the different municipalities, they can advise them, they can be their,
Well, we would
bouncing
hope that
zone.
that's the case, right? But not everybody has a Kevin.
No, but
So,
We also, most of us are belong to state associations, right? Association of Towns.
Sure.
New York Conference of Mayors, and so we talk with colleagues around the state too, and trade off ideas and exchange things. But I guess what I'm hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, but that the options that Austin laid out, at least number 3 that we've been taking the most time discussing today, is worthy of further discussion, right? Maybe
Yeah.
putting something on paper and
Right.
really kind of needling it down.
sure.
And then having, like I said, having that discussion with the county and others.
to the limit of the sales tax.
Yeah, that's all we're talking about.
That's a great idea, thank you.
Let me throw this into the mix, just to address the concern. If the IDA and the county are not looking to further incentivize more solar development in the county, we can do this, right, and it takes away part of the benefit, right, that they're getting right now. The other thing that we could do, if we're going in and rewriting our policy, is adjust the fee that we're putting for the pilot slightly higher per megawatt going forward.
You're talking about the actual
The actual-
payment, pilot payment.
Pilot payment,
Yeah.
right? From
Sure.
It used to be 3, right, or something?
3,500.
3,500, then it went up to 5.
Yeah.
Right.
Our lowest
So
was-
I don't know what the economics of these things are at the end of the day,
It's
but it's something that could be considered.
it's worth evaluating. It was over 3 years ago now that we did that. So
See what other communities are doing.
When we wrote our, if I could, when we wrote our resolution for the solar farms, I called NYSERDA, and NYSERDA kind of gave us what the general feel was across the state, right? So there's no, I guess they have the same problem that we have, right? So each
At that time, it was 5,
Yeah, it was 5, yeah.
yeah.
when we did it.
And since then, we were one of the early adopters to doing a solar policy. I would say there's probably a couple dozen other counties or IDAs that have done it now. So it'd be good to look and see what some of the other places have done since then that we can
Sure.
look at. Are we in the middle of the pack? Are we at the bottom? I mean, where are we?
That's a good point.
And I'm not saying I'm opposed to all solar farms, just, you know, if there's a community that wants it, then that's something that we obviously.
It's a community choice. I know
Right.
in Mexico,
Exactly.
our solar policy is very, very restrictive. I mean, we cited one farm, but it was by a very close vote, and there was a lot of opposition to it from the town and planning board. But it did get cited. I called Kevin up, he sent me Scribas. Scribas is a little more, I don't know, progressive. I guess that's a way to, you know, they had, you know, they were a little more, you know, open to it than ours was. Some communities don't have a policy, they need to work on it, but they can tailor a policy to really restrict on where you can build solar farms, how big they are, and, go from there. So it's totally, you know, zoning planning board control.
So we'll further refine, we'll have the discussions we need to have with the appropriate parties, and then have maybe an update at the next meeting regarding this.
That's perfect.
Kevin, just for information for a rollout, how many different individuals represent towns in the county, would you say? I mean, I know.
That's what Jerry was asking.
Oh.
There's
I don't know.
Oswego County attorneys, there's only a handful of us, and
Oh,
then the
there's
rest
some serious
are
ones, yeah.
primarily from Onondaga County.
Yeah.
Some of the larger firms that, do this kind of work will.
But like educating the towns can be done through their council, I would
Yeah.
think, as part of this plan.
One thing I will say that makes this different than a decommissioning bond, where some communities are very interested in getting it because they're worried about the long-term benefit, the long-term impacts, and other ones, yeah, I'm not gonna be around at that time, so it's not, you know, but this is something that directly impacts monetarily a community right away. And so I don't see why any community wouldn't want to do it, it just might be, are they gonna, how how creative do they get with that? But I don't see any that would say, we don't like money, we don't want additional money. So,
Not to get crazy, I know we're finishing this up, but if we thought about doing something similar just for our normal pilots, I know there are ideas that offer similar programs, even if it was a 1% or a 2%, to start funding up things for the municipalities that end up with the pilots. Just maybe something we could, plan for future, see if it makes sense to people, but, with some of the stuff that happened in the city of Oswego, could have been a really cool opportunity to have some funding for, youth programming or some other things like that, maybe arts and cultural, maybe, just something we could talk about. I think it'd be a neat thought, because there's not gonna be a lot of, think of the cities, there's not gonna be a lot of these solar projects, but it'd be kind of neat for the cities to be able to take advantage of this. We have a lot of low income folks here, a lot of other programs that probably could be buoyed by this, just worth talking about. Maybe
Build into the pilot.
yeah, maybe a 1%, we sales tax exemption for a project, but there's a 1% local, and then the cities could, again, it would more be cities, I would think, but it's worth talking about.
I think further developing this for solar will give us those answers too.
Yeah, I agree.
Probably the flexibility to consider that.
Might be a neat thing though.
Okay, good discussion, and I'm sure we'll bring it up in the next meeting. And Kevin, you're gonna have some sort of, some sort of,
Continue to develop this and see what we can put on paper.
okay. Number 7, Marmon Enterprises.
Gary, we need to go into executive session.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
okay.
Unless there's anything else before we go in.
Motion,
I'll move it.
to go into executive
I'll
session.
second
Motion by Barry Trimble, seconded by Nick Canale. Kevin, the reason we're going to do executive session?
To discuss the financial, condition of a particular individual or, company.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of entering executive session, say aye. All those opposed? Okay, we're into
Okay, we're out.
Okay, motion to come out of executive session,
So moved.
motion by Mark Greco, can I get a second? Seconded by Jerry Trimble. Okay, what time, Len?
10:37.
10:37, okay, we have a motion and a second, come out of executive session, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, we have a few things to, act on out of executive session. Marvin Enterprises loan deferment request, can I get a motion and a second on that, please?
Second.
Okay, motion by Nick Denali, seconded by Mark Greco. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And the delinquent loan report, can I get a motion and a second on that?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Tim Stahl, seconded by Barry Trimble. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And that's it for, action, executive session. Okay, any other business to discuss?
Yeah, for other business, one thing I wanna mention is that, August is the first month of the IDA fiscal year, according to our bylaws. This is the month in which the agency needs to hold an annual meeting. So we will be, holding the IDA's annual meeting during the August monthly board meeting, where the board will appoint reappoint officers. That is according to our bylaws. That wasn't changed, that was, in our bylaws all along.
About, civic facility,
That is something we're currently working on, and we have a project that's potentially going to come to the facility.
no, I mean an annual meeting. I mean, we're supposed to have an annual
Yes.
meeting.
Yeah, but I think it's a different time period, I think, I can check on this, but I think it's fiscal year, so January. But let me confirm that, if we have, probably.
Yeah, I don't think we have one.
No, we tried to schedule them, but
Right, we didn't have, yeah.
We had a series of meetings at the end of, calendar 22, I believe.
We met in October,
Right.
a couple times.
We're gonna have, potentially have action that needs to come to the facility very soon, and so our thought would be to hold those concurrently.
The last meeting was January 2022. So it was October 21.
Oh,
We had
yeah.
our activity, yeah. Then with the final round.
We did do
Yeah, it's not fun.
yeah, I'll look at that.
Yeah, okay.
no, at the annual meeting, soon we gotta do the, governance audit and finance committee meetings to
I believe we have those,
schedule before the meeting.
yeah, I believe so, I have to look at it again. We have a finance and audit schedule, tentatively scheduled, we gotta look at that, I believe it is for August. Well, we have to do those anyway when we do the, for the auditors. So we'll look at that, and see if that's something we need to
There
do.
wouldn't be any business for any of those committees.
There might not be, but I mean, just to say we held one to, fulfill our annual meeting requirement. And then if we needed one during the year sometime, we could always schedule it.
If it was a requirement.
Yeah. Are they required to meet if there isn't any business in front of them? They can find, I don't know.
I don't believe that
I
there's,
don't think so.
There's
I
not
think there's
a
a
requirement.
requirement of the committee.
You gotta form a committee, but you don't have to meet.
Right. Let me, look into that too. There might be a requirement for the governance and charter, or the governance committee and the audit committee to be at least once.
We can find out, let us know. Okay, any other business? Next meeting,
So we're looking at, potentially, a date between Monday, August 28th, and Thursday, August 31st. This is the week before Labor Day. Preferably Tuesday or Wednesday, the 29th or 30th.
Tuesday, Wednesday are good here.
Wednesday morning is good for me. I gotta stay for the rest every other day.
Both of those ones are fine with it.
Is it okay for you guys, Wednesday, 30th?
Sure.
Yeah.
What time?
Can do 8:30 again if that works for people?
That's great.
Get it done a little sooner?
So 8:30, Wednesday, August 30th.
So okay if you can?
Yeah.
8:30?
And you'll send,
We'll send this out right after this, that will be, that'll definitely happen this time.
Okay. Okay, Motion to adjourn,
So moved.
Mark Greco, do we have a second? Nick Nally, all those in favor?
Aye.
Nice meeting, everyone, thank you.